John Hancock here, and I am preparing for the upcoming Portland Retro Gaming Expo, and in today's video I'm sharing games from 1994. I am working with the Video Game History Foundation and presenting an awesome presentation in the Portland Retro Gaming Expo Museum. I've been doing and offering many games from my collection for the past several years, and I bring these games to represent and to put on display. And Frank of the Video Game History Foundation does an amazing job, and every year there's different themes. So this year's theme is games from 1994. I'm going to share some games, talk about some of my favorites, so sit back, relax, here we go. So here it is. Here are the games that I'm bringing for this amazing display, and I've been working with the Video Game History Foundation for several years, and they really do a great job of preserving, celebrating, and teaching the history of video games. That's one game that didn't make the display on my floor, but I'm bringing it, Crystal's Ponytail. So here are the games, if you didn't know, that were offered on several different platforms. I have like 8 different platforms of games that I'm bringing. I'm going to talk about some other things too that came out in 94. This is not everything. This is just what is going to be part of the display, which has limited space. But this is what I have. These are all Sega Genesis games that came out in 1994. And there's 4 separate categories that are going to be part of this theme. There's kids, adults, sports, and hits. In the comments, let me know which games do you think are part of different categories. But those are the 4 main themes that are categorized for games from 1994. Because really, the industry was growing up fast. This was kind of the last year in which the industry was really mostly centered on kids and sports, but there was a lot of hits, and there was some games centered for adults. The ESRB was formed, which was the origin of M-rated video games. So anyways, wanted to just talk about some of these, show these of these games. What are your favorites? And there's so many others as well. I'm going to talk about that later in this video, that there was many more games other than just the ones here presented. So I'm aware of that. Star Wars 32X, that was why I got a 32X. And yeah, overall, I was disappointed with my 32X, but Star Wars Arcade was pretty good. Zero Tolerance with that link cable, that was a fantastic game for the Sega Genesis. Sonic CD, one of my favorite 2D Sonics, and my Sealed Snatcher. There it is, in its glory, in a case. Lethal Enforcers with the Justifier gun. The Video Game History Foundation is going to have a whole presentation on that. They really do a great job of really looking at boxed games and telling a story on why they're significant. But yeah, lots of different games. Here's my box Super Nintendo collection from 1994. There's others, but these are the ones I'm bringing. My boxes aren't in pristine shape. Some of them are definitely used. Some of them are sealed. Some of them are ex-rentals. All the above. R-Type 3, fantastic game. Pocky and Rocky 2. And weird stuff like stone protectors. So yeah, the theme this year is 1994, separated into 4 categories: kids, adults, sports, and hits. And so there was a lot of sport games that came out. Nintendo was still around. Some of the final releases for Nintendo. Here are the games representing the regular NES. Some heavy hitters here: Flintstones, Surprise of Dinosaur Peak, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters. But then you even had CDI was still around. It's just nuts. Here's a couple games representing Hotel Mario there. Very important release and historically significant. But then you had Jaguar. So Jaguar had some of its better hits come out in 1994. Tempest 2000, Alien vs. Predator. Then you had games like Bubsy, which a lot of people still talk about. 3DO was still around, and 3DO had lots of hits. Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Need for Speed, John Madden Football, lots of variety that came out. There's also going to be Game Boy at the expo, and I'm going to talk more about some other things that came out in 1994 that you might have remembered. But yeah, Night Trap, Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, Quarantine, and Road Rash. So there it is. What was your favorites of this display? In the comments, let me know. There were many other amazing games that came out in 1994. My favorite PC game was TIE Fighter. Master Magic was another favorite. TIE Fighter is definitely in my top 3 favorite Star Wars games of all time. Action flight simulator. So many cool missions. You could fly eventually for the Emperor and do secret missions. Oh my goodness. So great. The captured footage I'm showing is from a Steam Deck. I couldn't get the music to play. I don't know what was going on. I'm sure it's just a setting, but it's a must. You got to check this out. If you haven't played TIE Fighter, it's one of the best Star Wars games, and I will constantly champion for this. Super Metroid, another huge hit for Nintendo. There will be a box copy in the display. I just don't have one. Anyways, and so Super Metroid, one of my favorite Super Nintendo games too. For many people, it's iconic 2D masterpiece. One of my best friends, Jesse, goes on and on about this game and how amazing it is. And I agree. I think 1994 really was a pinnacle for Nintendo and the quality that they were offering. Super Punch-Out, another one. I played a lot of the original Punch-Out, and I'm going to be honest, this is a game I personally didn't play a lot growing up, but I know many people are huge fans of this Super Nintendo game. The Super Nintendo, by 1994, was hitting its stride. It was really demonstrating the differences between the console and Sega Genesis. Super Game Boy was an awesome accessory for the Super Nintendo, allowing extra features to be displayed using Game Boy games. Now, I can't forget about Game Boy. Game Boy was in full swing in 1994, and so many great releases. Donkey Kong being probably one of my top 3 picks for the handheld, the iconic handheld, and I loved it. I had the Super Game Boy, so I got all these extra features, including some limited color. Awesome. It was just, to me, one of the best releases for Game Boy, as it took the original release and added, a bazillion levels, and really just a fantastic puzzle game in general. Then you had stuff like Space Invaders, which had the full arcade ROM embedded in the Game Boy cart, and using the Super Game Boy, you could activate it. So that's just a fantastic thing in general. Space Invaders really kind of making a retro comeback in the 90s, and this is a fantastic release as well. Fairly affordable too, especially if you go loose cart. So I definitely have to mention Contra: The Alien Wars, which had a cool feature when using the Super Game Boy. It had improved sound. And while this is a scaled down version of the Super Nintendo game, a lot of it's here and so well done on the Game Boy. It just showed that, by 1994, programmers had really figured out how to make polished games on Nintendo's handheld. King of Fighters 94, I did a whole video celebrating the 30th anniversary of King of Fighters, and this iconic fighting franchise debuted in 1994. You can check out that video. I'll put a link below. But King of Fighters, for many people, arcade releases were centered around fighting games, but there were several other amazing releases. Windjammers for Neo Geo, another classic. Oh my goodness, I absolutely love this game. The more I play it, the more I enjoy it. I'm not any good at it, but there's a lot of strategy to this game, and for many people out there, you're going to have your favorites. In the comments, definitely let me know what other games weren't mentioned that were your favorites released in 1994. Also, 1994 was the demise of the Turbo Duo and its foray into the US market, but it had a few awesome releases. Bonk 3 for the Turbo Duo on disc was a fantastic platformer. Unfortunately, many people did not get to enjoy it. And the other one was Dynastic Hero, in which Hudson Soft took Wonder Boy and Monster World and changed the theme and characters and made it its own version. Pretty sweet, very expensive now. So what were your favorite games you saw in today's videos? This isn't all of them. This is just a theme that we're going with. These are the games I had in my collection. Anyways, thank you so much for viewing this video. And upcoming this next week is the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, where I'm gonna have a booth at 1009 with my good friend Corey Strite, and I'll be offering my homebrew and aftermarket games there at the show. I'm at every Portland Retro Gaming Expo. You can come by and say hello, and thank you so much for viewing this video. If you like what you see, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button and clicking the bell as I'm uploading videos every week. You folks are wonderful and beautiful. This is the immortal John Hancock, and you take care.